All right, what is up, guys? We are back with another Blacklisted voice. It's been a while. The season is over, so I think we're going to try and start getting on a regular schedule with these again. We are here with Jaime. Jaime, how's it going?
Great, great. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Some people might know you more by your Instagram handle Wambo Jambo.
Wambo Jambo. And if it's canon, that is strictly my name. That's well only. That's it.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'll go by Wambo.
Okay, so why are we doing this podcast? Yeah. Okay, so why are we doing this podcast?
Um, I I reached out to Kyle after the CrossFit posted last week about their philosophy that they've had for a very long time, and I think pretty much everybody's familiar with it. Um,
Yeah, I mean I know it was taught in my level one. I went to
Mine
level
too. Yeah. And
one
mine was, when was yours? When did you take your L?
in 2011,
Wow. Okay.
I
Yeah, mine was
think.
like 20,
So
28,
it's been
2019.
around for a while for sure.
Yeah.
I think it
Oh yeah.
was
Mine was
June or
like
July of
in January of
2011.
2019, I think.
Okay.
When I did
Yeah,
mine.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
It's been
And I guess what we're referencing, guys, is the fitness in 100 words. I'll just read it here really quick. Eat meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no sugar. Keep intake levels to levels that will support exercise but not body fat. Practice and train major lifts, deadlift, clean, squat, presses, clean and jerk, and snatch. Similarly, master the basics of gymnastics, pull-ups, dips, rope climbs, push-ups, sit-ups, presses to handstand, pirouettes, flips, splits, and holds, bike, run, swim, row, etc. Hard and fast. 5 or 6 days per week. Mix these elements in as many combinations and patterns as creativity will allow. Routine is the enemy. Keep workouts short and intense. Regularly learn and play new sports. So that is CrossFit's definition of fitness in 100 words. And so, Jaime, you kind of had some qualms with with this definition, I guess.
I took to Instagram. I ranted on Instagram, which I don't normally do unless I actually genuinely, really care about a topic.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
So,
yeah,
what kind of set you off on in this 100 words here?
the biggest thing to me, um, we were talking about this, is the exclusion dynamic and the
Mhm.
absolute mindset. They say hard, no sugar. They tell you little starch. They tell you some fruit, and then they double down in the description, and they say, actually, we don't even support artificial sugars,
Mhm.
support any added sugars, including honey, which a lot of people, even on like the paleo diet and stuff, eat honey and maple syrup.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then but so they kind of double down on that, but they, I mean, like, they clarify, they say like these and stuff are lower impact, and obviously, like, nobody's saying that's not true.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's some interesting components to kind of this like 100 words here is they're hitting on nutrition as well as fitness. So it's like not
Yeah,
there's a weird component to, like, obviously everything is an
yeah,
easy way to say this, but there's
yeah.
also a component that needs to separate the two. Um,
Yeah,
and everybody's so individualized inside of nutrition
yeah,
and inside of fitness as well.
yeah,
So, they're kind of, to your point, like their definition is very absolutist. And like if you're to take it for face value, there's a lot of good that comes out of those 100 words. But
yeah, definitely.
when you start to kind of like look at it a little bit more and kind of, to your point, like um, break some of the components down, there's a lot that doesn't line up with what they're practicing and what they're preaching, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The I do think it's interesting how it's even laid out. Like I think it's funny how they put I think it's funny that they put nutrition first.
Mm-hmm.
Too. And like yes, nutrition is the I would say, you know, as far as health goes, it is the number one thing, which is probably why they put it first. But it's just funny because they're like fit, like it's a sport, so they like put that. But whatever. But I mean, I think it's cool that they have that, and I think in general, you know, I was talking with Logan, and you guys, a lot of you guys probably know him, Logie Bear on Instagram. It was on the team with Kyle, and
Yeah.
touched his nipples at regionals, and you know,
You might know him from that.
years after on the after the events. But he's my boyfriend. We were talking, and he was playing devil's advocate, and he was saying like, you know, this isn't like terrible advice. It's not awful if you were to tell somebody that's new to fitness in general and like just starting CrossFit, and they're like, how do I get healthy? Like they could these 100 words, and that's not like terrible advice. Like I don't think he's going to say that. You know, you shouldn't eat vegetables and whatever and stuff, but yeah, the absolutist and the exclusion mindset I think are very dangerous waters, especially when you're dealing with the population. You know, if most of the people that followed CrossFit on Instagram and social media were like regular everyday pre-diabetic typical American diet non-active people, I would say like maybe.
Yeah.
The problem is that most of the people that are looking at this and are like, yeah, are like extreme CrossFitters.
Yeah.
Like, that people that go work out 6-7 days a week and like are taking things to extremes, and they're meal prepping and they're like going hard, you know, everybody has those people at their box.
Yeah.
But so I think the issue is with the following. Like that is one, and then also it's just never healthy to have that.
Yeah, I think too, like if we take wind it back a little bit and kind of go back in CrossFit's past and look at just how how much their philosophy around nutrition has evolved, not to the extent of what the outside market is evolving to, but just what CrossFit has evolved from. It used to be in my level one, and I don't know what they were teaching prior to this, but they taught paleo and they taught the zone diet.
Yeah, they still do. That's
okay.
it. Nothing has changed.
Do they still teach paleo though? Because I thought that they had a falling out with paleo.
No, I think they still, I remember them mentioning it. They didn't cover heavily as the zone, but they did mention it. But I mean, basically what they're saying in this Fitness in 100 Words is basically the paleo diet, like essentially. That's what it is. The only difference is in paleo, you don't eat peanuts.
Yeah. Okay. So this is as of 2019, you took your level one, right?
You're still, I don't remember if they hit the paleo as hard as the zone, but they definitely talked about both, and the zone was hit.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, they kind of hit on two fad diets. My understanding was that CrossFit had kind of like a falling out with I think Rob Wolf was the big pioneer of the paleo diet.
I didn't know that.
And he has actually, I think recently, I could be wrong on this, but I think as of a couple of years ago has actually walked back on some of the paleo stuff that he was putting out.
You know any specifics on what?
I'm trying to think exactly what it was. I think it was more along the lines, and so this is kind of where like the conversation is heading eventually, but I think it's more along the lines of he was using or trying to get people to use fat as a substrate of fuel rather than carbohydrate. And while in a good majority of the population, especially now for health, like from a keto perspective, not a terrible idea. Like you have, if you are obese in any way, shape, or form, you have excess fat that you can use as a fuel source.
It's highly
but
dependent on
yeah,
the
right.
lifestyle though. It's not gonna
Right. But when we start getting into, and this is where they start to kind of contradict themselves in this, and I think this was really put out before a good understanding of what high intensity needs is if you are going hard and you are performing intense workouts, you need to fuel those workouts from the glycolytic pathway, and that involves glucose. And that's like I that is like an absolute in science.
Yeah. And people
is
like
like
to,
the body does
yes.
need glucose.
It's literally, okay, so I put it like, this is my favorite thing to talk about, because people say, a lot of my professors used to say, my background is exercise science, for those of you who don't know, that's my degree. The great professors at KSU, one of them said, people say they're tricking their bodies into, burning fat as fuel. Like, take people, and listen, if you do keto and you know somebody that does keto and they love it and that works for them, like, whatever, right? Like, everybody's different and you do what you want to do, whatever. But for people that say that it's like way that the body wants to get its nutrients and or its fuel sources and stuff like that, no, it's not. People like, or my professor would say, people think they're tricking their body into doing XYZ. I'm tricking my body into burning fats for fuel. You're not tricking your body into doing literally anything. Your body is trying to keep you alive.
Yeah.
People like to throw around the statement, carbs are non-essential, a lot, when they don't actually have any idea what that means. And that just means that your body can survive without them, but it's going to create them from other stuff. Like literally your body is going to try to make carbs in the gluconeogenesis process, or whatever. It's going to try to get carbs from other substrates, like other fats and stuff. So you're like, oh, I don't need them. My body's, I'm tricking it. And it's like, nah, bitch, we're just trying to keep you alive. We're going to do it any way we can. And when you don't have fat, and they're going to go to amino acids, and start burning that. So your body wants carbs, like whether you give it to them, and like them or not, like your body's gonna make them into glucose. So I just think it's funny when people are like, I don't need them, they're not essential, and my body I trick myself. I'm like, no, you did not. Your body's just trying to survive.
I have not heard I haven't heard somebody say I don't need carbs, I'm just trying to trick myself. But again, I haven't worked much in the general health substrate of coaching for a while here, so I have not heard that one tossed around. But
now you will.
That's now I'll see it more on Instagram. What is that? The law of attraction or something like that?
Yeah.
Seeing it more.
Manifest it. Put it into the universe.
Yeah. There's, so like, to kind of go along with what you said there, like your body wants to be in keto. Maybe for some people, but like the human body is very complex, and we can look across the world and see how adaptable the human body is to multiple different diets. Like, there's a subset of population, Eskimos. I don't know if that's the correct term.
But they it's like Alaskan, like it's they literally live off of,
I
don't know the nobody cancel us. I don't know the correct term. But yes, I know what you're talking about.
But
they function high fat.
Yeah, they literally live off of fat. So they're in a ketosis state. But again, if we look at kind of what their energy demands are, they need to heat and insulate their body. So they need to, have high volumes of fat, because they're constantly trying to keep themselves warm, which is a thermal energetic process. So they need kind of like a slow burning log to make sure that their bodies are staying warm. Where, Mediterranean lives predominantly more off of the quote unquote, well, I guess that's not as great of an example. We'll go over to Asia, because, they live off of predominantly rice. Rice and fish is their predominant food source. So, you know, they do have some omega-3s in some of their fish or in their fish, but rice is a pretty staple food source in their culture, and that is literally a carbohydrate.
Just,
like,
yes,
literally. So, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say that's absolutely right, and I think that bring it, and if you take that, you bring it back to the CrossFit statement in the problem of absolutes, like every single person, every single community, every single you know, region of the world is going to have, you know, if you take regional, so you said like in Asia, but then like then you make it person to person, there's even more variance there. So giving people like just like a blanket statement to be like, you should eat this way, when like there's actually not that much research to support that that's the best way for every single person to eat. Like,
right.
That's just, that just seems, I think better general advice for them to have to give people would be eat fruits and vegetables. You know, they say like some fruit, like that's really annoying because like nobody's going to get fat from overeating fruit. That's not going to be a problem at all. That's so annoying. I'm like, okay. But yeah, like eating fruits and vegetables and maybe like avoid excess amounts of sugar and
right. I mean, like, let's dive into kind of like the restriction aspect of it here in a little bit here. But I have a buddy who's like, he's always saying like, if you cook your own meals at home, there's almost no way that you could become obese, like unless it's like Hamburger Helper or something like that. But if you're cooking, like if you're cooking a vegetable, protein, and like a serving of fruit or a serving of carb, whatever that is, sweet potato, rice, whatever, there's almost no way the satiation levels that you're going to experience from that are going to keep you full for you know 2.5 3 hours, especially if you're not a super active individual. And you know,
even, you know, that's funny that you mentioned that, because even if you are, so there's a lot of research that shows that people that are physically active tend to really balance expenditure with intake too, which is really interesting. And also just a tidbit for anybody who cares. If you don't know what your resting metabolic rate is, and you want to find out, if you haven't gained weight, you're somebody that stays at a constant weight and you have for a long period of time, just track your food for 2 weeks and see where you end up. Don't change anything. Just see where you end up, because that's probably where it is. It's interesting.
Yeah.
If you haven't gained weight, then you tend to balance energy expenditure with intake. So, but yeah, like you said, like you're not gonna, you know, gain 20 pounds making a home cooked meal unless you're eating like the sugar and butter and junk and putting that, you know. I used to eat loaded baked potatoes like every day when I got home from school when I was younger. I cannot get away
Texas Roadhouse
now, but don't do that. Really every day.
Yeah. I think one of the bigger interesting things about this is like part of the recommendation is like very calorically dense foods in the nuts and seeds, and that's like, yes, it's high in fat and it's a very calorically dense food. So like, I know if I were to just go fucking snack on a bag of almonds,
oh my god, they'd be gone.
The whole bag of almonds. Yeah, and I'd be like 2,700 calories.
I can't keep them in the house. So I can't keep those Blue Diamond like salt and vinegar almonds in the house. I'll eat like the whole entire bag of them. It's
yeah
nightmare.
And I'm not going out and saying that you shouldn't eat nuts or seeds, or that carbs aren't, you know, aren't as satiating as you know, higher fat content foods.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, if you're filling up with more, which they do say this, if you're filling up with more vegetables, and this is kind of something that we talked about on earlier before we started the podcast, but the amount of vegetables, of physical vegetable that you have to put in your body to match some of these caloric contents is going to keep you full and digesting food for a significant amount of time.
Yeah.
And we kind of chatted about this in regards to athletic performance, and we'll dive into that in a little bit here. But yeah, it's you know, I do think they counteract it with keeping intake levels that will support exercise but not body fat. You know, it's a kind of a catchy phrase.
Yes.
But yeah, you know, I think one thing that they definitely needed to add in here at least is finding out where you sit from a gain standpoint, a maintain standpoint, and a deficit standpoint. And there's, you know, if they were to go ahead and start educating again, or more or better, I think that would be a super beneficial thing or beneficial tool for them to give people. And like creating their own tracking app, like that would be like, if you come to level 1, you get a tracking app for your clients, or you get a tracking app for yourself, or even them just creating a food tracking app that's super easy to use would do wonders for the nutrition community, or you know, health community, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they
And there's a
kind of just
lot that you can do with that app too.
Yeah, that would be interesting for them to do. And I feel like, I don't know, when they come out and they talk about nutrition, it is like this. Like in this instance, they just kind of like throw a statement out there, and then they just are like, "What? Like, go crazy," you know? Like they don't ever give anything beyond that. Like, give anything deeper beyond the statement. It's always just been the same exact message, 20 years, the same, or however long, the same thing over and over again, nothing else. Versus these other, like I've already talked to Kyle about this, but like what's the Alex Parker's nutrition company. I just reposted something from them today. Tactic Nutrition. Amazing. Anybody is listening to this and they care, that's a great page to follow. And they like will take a statement and then like dive deep into it, and they'll give you multiple perspectives, and nothing's biased. Everything is very like, look, here's what the research says, and here's what we're saying, and like you can enjoy your life and stuff. And so they put out is really good and really like deeper. But I feel like CrossFit, when they nutrition stuff, I hate it because they're just like, here you go, that's it. Like, why are you even saying anything at all? Like,
I mean, that's kind of
say one thing and
then and let's get into the restriction stuff here, but that is definitely one thing that has been very frustrating to see from CrossFit, is nothing around their methodology has adapted. It's always just been this absolute intensity over everything.
That component's interesting too. Like that. Like,
I mean, that's a whole
that's a whole other thing. But that was that.
But but they're talking about being the leading experts on fitness for my interpretation of it is fitness for health, but they're still stuck in methodologies and statements from 20 years ago that might have been might need to go a little bit deeper in what they're saying. Not necessarily that they're false, but there is kind of new research on the forefront to maybe alter some of those ideas and concepts.
Definitely.
But you want to chat a little bit more about like the restriction side and restriction mentality of this post here?
Yeah. So my I think just the biggest quarrel, and then I had people respond to this portion of my rant, my story a lot.
What was your rant? Just
So I
verbatim. Let's go.
basically, no, yeah,
No, not
so
basically. Memorize. Get it back.
so it was first thing that stuck out to me was I was saying like this says the sport whose athletes literally have to chug liquid glucose in order to keep up with their energy demands. And then yes, I understand that not everybody has to do that, and those are higher level athletes. But I just thought it was ironic. And then the next point point that I made was talking about the exclusion mindset and how it's not healthy to tell a population of people, especially, I mentioned this earlier, when the people that follow CrossFit are people that exercise, they're people that care. Nobody that's unhealthy, that's sitting on their ass all the time is giving about what CrossFit is saying. It's people that do CrossFit more than likely, or that have taken interest in it to some regard. So, and telling that group of people that are probably like decently healthy and fit that they no sugar, and then they say not even stevia, not even honey, nothing, like need any of that. It's been really hard personally for me to come from, as I used to do the paleo diet in high school. I ran cross country, which you know that, Kyle, but for anybody that doesn't know that, I ran cross country all throughout high school. Those of you who don't know this statistic, cross country, the women's cross country is the highest prevalence of eating disorders out of any sport in high school. It's number one. So, woo, won something. Just kidding, dark humor. But yeah, so did the paleo diet in high school through cross country, and thought that was going to be like the best, healthiest way for me to eat. And not that it's not a good way to eat, but that caused in that sport, and that caused a large, a bad disordered eating. So I wouldn't say eating disorder. I didn't get diagnosed. I think a lot of women experience this where they're like kind of in that, and men, they experience it where like, it's like, I don't know if I have an eating disorder, but I have those tendencies, whatever. But I couldn't eat anything that was outside of my comfort zone for years, like literally nothing. Like I was terrified of food. I would eat like almonds and an apple for my lunch. I would like, that was it. Like I was scared to eat anything that was labeled as bad, or that, that had sugars in it or anything. I was terrified. And it wasn't until I started doing CrossFit where I was like, oh, like all these people are healthy and fit, and they're, living they're amazing lives, and they're going out eating tacos and pizza, like after training on Fridays with each other, and like, they're doing fine. Like, okay, cool. So like I would go and I eventually started branching out, because and CrossFit did that, that the change in sport and stuff. But it took a really long time. Probably took several years for me to actually feel okay with my food relationship.
Right.
And so, so anyway, long story short, the exclusion mindset is very, very prevalent. It is a huge, massive issue, especially in the female athlete community. You see it everywhere. People take things to extremes, and the anxiety that it causes. I don't know if you've ever experienced anything like that. Have you ever experienced food anxiety like that before? I don't want to.
No, I'm a male.
I've met some. I never want to say just women, because I know that there are guys.
There are guys that definitely.
I know there's like guys that do. I know a lot of guys that do the body comp stuff, like body competitions and stuff like that. That's pretty prevalent there.
Yeah.
But,
no, I have I have a pretty, I would say, okay relationship with food.
Okay. It's like the worst. It gives me anxiety thinking about the anxiety that I used to have about food. Like the
Yeah.
worst. And I've seen girls on TikTok be like, I was the salad girl. Like I would bring my own salad to parties. Like it would be so bad. It really is so bad to where you're like, I don't want to go to a gathering because
Hmm.
there. I don't want to be tempted to eat there. What am I going to eat there? I can't eat the food that they have. That's bad.
Hmm. Hmm.
What am I going to eat? I'm going to bring my own stuff. Like I can't.
Hmm.
My family would go on vacation. They'd stop at McDonald's to eat. I'd be like, well, I can't eat anything there. So I'm just not going to eat,
Hmm.
wherever. It's like every single second of every single day revolves around thinking about your food and like what you can and cannot eat. And I feel like now my day revolves around food, but in a good way. I'm like, ooh, what am I getting for breakfast? But like
Yeah. Yeah.
you get excited about your
Yeah. So I'll kind of caveat off of that
yeah,
here.
please
And
do.
it's interesting that you came into CrossFit and kind of went the reverse route of like, oh, everyone's going out and enjoying themselves. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go like, and they're all fit and they appear to be healthy. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna go and do that as well.
Yeah.
When I came into CrossFit, paleo was like just about at its peak. And so everyone was trying to do paleo. And there was the paleo challenge at all the gyms and like all your
When did you
snacks
start doing CrossFit? Just as a just so I know. Like
was in that was in 2012 when I started working at a gym. So this was predominantly at a gym.
yeah.
Um,
That's funny. That's when I started.
Again, when
That's
I
when
go
I
back to
started
saying,
doing it. Was like 2012.
yeah, yeah,
That was the
yeah.
time.
So this is like, when I say that I have an okay relationship with food, I started exercising so that I could eat whatever the fuck I wanted to eat, basically.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
contrary to popular opinion, my opinion is that you can outwork a bad diet. Your body might not hold up though.
Yeah. You
So
might feel like ass, but
your body your body might break. Uh, so I was kind of, to bring it back to the story, I was kind of observing what was happening with these paleo challenges, what people were doing paleo wise, and like it became obsessive for people to the point where they were legitimately, kind of like you said, not eating at outings or get-togethers, or
yeah.
even at the gym after their workout, because they didn't have access to the foods that were prescribed in paleo. And or I think a lot of the time that the reason that those challenges worked is because they were so restrictive, that people didn't know what to eat anymore.
Yeah.
Like, can you eat
Everything
beef
is like
jerky?
you're second guessing. Yeah. Like, can I eat beef jerky? Or is there
Yeah.
something in the beef jerky that is technically not allowed within the parameters of the
Right.
paleo?
And so you end up just going into a caloric deficit because you're like, I don't know if
What do I eat?
I can
Okay.
eat
I guess I'm
this, or I have like
grapes.
foods that are 5 days.
Yeah.
Grapes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that I kind of came into it from the perspective that you were talking about, of like people were starting to get
That was the
overly
time.
obsessive about it. And
Yeah.
yeah, and the big issue is and especially with these freaking nutrition challenges, man, they're so annoying.
It's awful. Jonathan and I were talking
Sorry if
about
you're
that this
listening.
weekend.
Yeah, sorry if you're listening to someone, but like legit, like the guy that won dropped a significant amount of weight. But he gained it. He gained weight before it and then dropped a significant amount of weight during the
Yeah.
challenge to win it.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, he doesn't give a fuck about the challenge, ate paleo the whole time, doesn't give a fuck
Yeah.
about paleo, and goes right back to his old habits,
Eating whatever.
and
Yeah.
eating whatever, not healthy, comes in and moves around for 60 minutes. But, outside of that, there's not much like healthy things he's doing in his life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, to that extent, like I have never
Like
seen, say that again.
it's kind of like you're saying, it's kind of the opposite of
Yeah, yeah. So like I didn't start seeing things being healthy from a nutrition side of things in the sport and in CrossFit until like 2016, when there was like this huge prevalence of nutrition coaches coming into the realm and being like,
Yeah.
well, actually, you do need to eat carbs and you do need to fuel
Yeah.
for this
Funny
work for these
thing.
workouts. Like,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
fueled off fats.
Yeah. And that's like, we talked about this before, but it's interesting for them to say, you know, um, some fruit, little starch, no sugar, vegetables, and lean meats. I'm like, okay, well, your activity, you also preach high intensity. Your activity
Mm-hmm.
is dependent upon the glycolytic pathway. So I'm like, that's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. I'm like, okay, so I'm eating some fruit, but not too much. And then a little, just a little bit, not a lot, no
Yeah.
sugar, and some vegetables. I'm like, well, fruits and vegetables have a lot of fiber. Can't use those as fuel because we don't digest them, or we don't break them down.
Yeah.
I'm like, so where are the carbs coming from? Where am I getting?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
There's
that's yeah. And with
there's a
paleo, those
famous
diets, like you just end up, like you said, like you end up not eating that much.
yeah.
You just don't
Yeah.
because
And
they're
there's
so afraid of what can I not eat? I'm
right,
afraid of this. I'm
right.
afraid of that. It really,
Yeah, so it
really,
becomes
really breeds that toxic.
mm-hmm,
And it's a slippery slope. Like I
mm-hmm,
find myself, we have some friends that we hang out with, and they ate paleo for a really long time. And
mm-hmm.
they eat really clean. So like we'd go over to their house for dinner, and they would most of the time, I would say, would be cooking like a paleo style dinner, which is fun,
Mm-hmm.
delicious, great, whatever. But there would be times where I'd be like, shit, like should I? And this was like a couple of years ago. I'd be like, should I be eating like them? Like, should I go back to doing paleo? Whatever. It was like this
Mm-hmm.
slippery slope of like questioning everything that I was doing
Mm-hmm.
and like falling back into that like I need to be more restrictive. I need to watch
Yeah.
more. And it's like so easy to fall back into that and to get so stressed out. And listen, there's so much that everybody deals with, so much shit. Like I feel like it's you do not need to overcomplicate things. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
bringing it back to the exclusion mindset and that statement, everybody's just doing their best. Like most people that do CrossFit and that work out just in general are struggling to work out and go to CrossFit.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
to work their 9 to 5s and they've got kids and they're working out. Like you're a badass. If you're juggling all that, you're doing great. And if all you can muster is to make some like pasta and like eat it with broccoli or something and like I don't know, some like kind of healthy, somewhat healthy meal. That's all that you can do and it doesn't fit the guidelines that CrossFit put on their thing. Like that's fine. Like you're doing great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that exclusion mindset, there's too much going on in the world. There's too much going on in people's lives. The last thing that people need to stress about is not following those specific parameters. And people
Or just
will stress about that.
yeah, or just being, I mean, I think probably some of the stress comes from like legitimately feeling shame that you're not living up to the
Oh my
standard
God,
of
yeah.
the 100
Like
words.
feeling that guilt.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if I'm not doing it, somebody else is. And like while that might be a good mindset
Yeah.
to have in like training with like sometimes, if you're an elite level athlete, that's like the shame is so heavy. You're like,
Yeah.
this person can do it. Why can't I? And I'm like, well, they might have
Yeah.
no kids. They might have like a perfect job that allows them to do that or whatever. But
Yeah. Or like they might have developed habits over the years that allow them to get to that point. Like
yeah.
this is
or they
like
might be
being like
sharing not all the information. They might be putting on Instagram that they're eating these meals or whatever. So you think that's how they eat all the time, and they're not. That's not how they're eating for one meal a day. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, and like the big thing that or the point that I want to try and make here is like everything is a process, and like maybe your process started by you going into a CrossFit gym and working out, and like that's the step in the right direction. But now when you post something like this where it's like you have to be eating this, you have to be exercising like this, you have to be doing it high intensity with these movements, like now all of a sudden that person sees that who just walked into the gym and they're like, oh man, I'm such a failure right now, like
God, yeah.
what's the point? And they might give up and walk away, you know? Where like everything, even in a training sense, is a process, right? Like when you first started training, like most people, I say most, like this is not I try not to make absolute statements here. Yeah. But like most people probably weren't eating the best or sleeping 8 hours a night, or
Absolutely
you
not.
know, maybe they were putting what's that?
I said absolutely not.
Yeah, right. So like, or like, you know, training to the right volume, training to the right intensity, water intake, like those are all things that, you know, you can start adding in slowly into your training. Like maybe the first thing you want to stress in the body, or the first habit you want to change, is going to the gym every day for 3 hours. This is from a competitive standpoint. Break it down to
Not
60 minutes.
everyone.
Yeah. And yeah, and maybe you kind of tap your adaptation out on that. And the next thing you want to add in is you know, sleeping for 8 hours a night, and you do that for a year or 2 years, and you kind of tap the adaptation on that. And next thing you want to do is eat healthy, and you do that for a year or 2 years, and you kind of tap the adaptation at that, as you're constantly introducing new stimulus into the body to help boost performance. And now this isn't to say that you probably shouldn't be you should probably be doing those things right off the bat, but as an example, it's a step, it's a process to get everything aligned to the stars. And I think there's actually a video of Fikowski out there talking about how it was super hard for him to sleep 9 hours a night. He's like, I would wake up at like 7.5, 8 hours and have to force myself to just lie in bed for another hour. Mm-hmm. And I kept doing it, and eventually I just started sleeping for 9 hours. Like it was, I just had to force myself to do it. But that was something that he was working on. You know, this is like 6 years into his competitive career. So it's like the same thing with somebody who's seeing this, like maybe their first step was going to a CrossFit gym, and their next step is looking at the nutrition side of things, or bringing some more intensity into their training, or working on developing their strength aspects of the sport, you know? So it's tough to live in those absolutes, because I think there is value to it, but at the same time, there's context to it that needs to be broken down and discussed. Absolutely. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that would say, you know, like, man, I can't believe people take things to such extremes, or that they feel that the shame that we were talking about and all that stuff. And man, like people don't really think like that, but they absolutely do.
Whether you realize it or not.
Yes. And comparison is the thief of joy. You know, that's like a cheesy statement, but like it really is. People are, especially now in this age of social media, people are comparing themselves to people constantly. They're again, like a parent just doing their best, like going working out, whatever, comparing themselves to their favorite CrossFit Games athlete who is, you know, like eating super, super clean and whatever. But that's just not realistic for every single person.
Right.
I mean, like, I'm still figuring it out. I think I'm like a nutrition nerd. But I'm still figuring out how to eat right for my body. And I'm years deep into CrossFit now, and I've been studying this stuff for a long, long time. And I still don't know all the answers, and I still don't know what's completely right. And if I were to think about, and if I think about other people and compare myself to them, it just hinders my progress. I feel like and if I think in those absolutes, then it really, really, it messes with your ability, honestly, to and at least it does with mine, to like to get to know yourself and
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good point.
for you, especially in training.
Yeah, yeah, you're just like kind of constantly trying what other people are doing versus what you
Yeah.
might think is for you.
Like, maybe this would work. Maybe this would work. When really that probably would be best is just to not be stressed out about it and eat a balanced diet, and then like eat chips and queso with your friends on the weekends
Yeah.
and not worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's dive into kind of this high intensity thing and carbs that are needed for high intensity. Because this is kind of the qualm that I have with CrossFit right now, is that they have not separated CrossFit the sport and CrossFit the health routine. And
people are
the 100 words of fitness,
confusing. It's
yes. And the 100 words of fitness is great for health. Like if you were to take that and you were to apply that on a daily basis and live in an absolute to that statement, you would be healthy. You would be fit and you would be healthy.
Yeah.
You would not be performing to your body's absolute potential like what the sport tests though.
Yeah.
And a big reason for that is because there's too little carbohydrate that you're getting out of this. Yeah. And along those lines, to perform to your best potential, you have to put in multiple workouts a day, like some of these athletes are doing, and long training sessions that are, I mentioned 3 hours in the podcast earlier, like 3 hours worth of training a day, if not more than that. And, to put into your body the amount of food needed to fuel that type of training, go and look at what Michael Phelps ate in a day. Now, CrossFitters aren't necessarily to that standard, because there is an intensity component to it. There's not as much of an aerobic component to it. But he ate 10,000 calories a day in the peak of his training, and he was eating pizza and like Subway subs and like all sorts of crazy shit.
I think Matt was eating, but like when around you go there too. I think I remember him. Matt. I think Matt was eating that too.
Yeah. I mean, he might have been.
I remember that him being like, so much food.
Sorry, you're breaking up there a little. See if my internet connection is unstable.
I wasn't sure if it was you or me.
Hopefully we'll come back in a second here. Easily digested. And Jamie, you're back.
Yeah, I it just froze up. I wasn't sure what was
going on. Yeah, I think my internet connection is a little unstable. You were talking about Matt.
I was just saying that that I think he was eating around that too. As you said, Michael Phelps. Yeah, I think he was eating around the games training.
Yeah, and so I was starting to make the point, like when you're at a competition, you're stressed all the time.
Oh, dude,
levels are through the roof, adrenaline's through the roof, your hormones are buzzing on like 5 billion. And you need easily digestible carbs at a competition, and that is candy, that is shakes, carb shakes, protein shakes, sodas, whatever, Gatorade, lots of fucking sugar. And so you have this statement of the 100 words of fitness, but then you also have these role models in the sport that people look up to, that in my opinion, and I think this is very debatable, but the sport sells CrossFit. CrossFit would not be where it is without the sport. And your top athletes are not following the guidelines that you're putting out. And so there's this disconnect from the two that I think somewhere needs to be bridged and talked about, and they just continue to push the two things as one. I don't think it's doing anybody especially from the health side of things, a service.
I completely agree with that. And I, until you mentioned that, what's a talking point? Like I really hadn't thought about how little distinction they have made, if any. I don't know if I've ever seen them ever talk about the athletic side of things, which is really confusing because most of what they post has to do, I feel like, with the exception of their COVID time period where they posted people doing milk jug strict whatever. It was an interesting time. Some basement looks like the set of That 70s Show. Have like a paisley couch, taking antifreeze and doing like
the blue jug was so great.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Prime content. Yeah, I feel like most of what they post is, like you said, the sport sells the CrossFit for sure.
Right.
Most of what they post has to do with the games and stuff. And when they throw out like a random statement like that, like, okay, well, most of your athletes can't eat like that. Yeah,
right.
And Allison Scuds is I've talked about her with you before, but her nutrition out a little while ago, what she eats in a day. I think she's eating like 400 grams of carbs somewhere in there. And fuel her training, that's what she's got to eat. She works very closely with coaches. She's shredded, obviously a very high level athlete, and that's what she eats and that's what works for her. Talks a lot about like food freedom and makes sure people know that you can eat fun stuff and be healthy. So she puts a lot of recipes and stuff. But but she is eating a lot of carbs. Really eating sugar. And she's got a huge following. So I'm sure there are people who are like, wow, she's ripped and she's drinking liquid sugar. So there needs to be a distinction there. And also there's people like me, like I myself am, you got a lot of in between people. I feel like that's like me, like in my training. I'm not training for 6 hours a day, but I am training for 2 to 3. And I don't always know where my energy demands lie, but I do know that when I haven't eaten enough in a day, I get severe brain fog and start to feel like I pass out and my brain, everything's fuzzy, right? So so I eat fruit snacks and drink a liquid IV and Gatorade and stuff, but I'm not like tip top. So I feel like there's a lot of people that are probably, what do you think about that? Because there's probably like a lot of people that are in my position and that are kind of in that middle ground area.
Yeah, like not necessarily a professional and making a living off of it. So it's like,
yes, but like I don't think, sorry, I don't think I could eat based on their parameters. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
And be okay. Like I literally don't think I could. Also, it's expensive to have to eat.
Yeah, right. Well,
that's the point we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah, I mean, that was the other thing. That was like another thought that I had was like when you were talking about, going home and making pasta or whatever. Like, what if like CrossFit's not cheap?
No, so like, you're gonna pay like movies for a gym membership and then
and to go back to
your paleo diet.
To go back to the point where we were talking about like everything's a process. Like, what if that individual is paying money to go and do CrossFit, and the best that they can do is afford a box of mac and cheese?
For real, like that's it.
Their training,
and they're in a caloric deficit probably.
All right, yeah.
They're so eating mac and cheese. That's the best thing.
Yeah, but you're gonna tell them like you need to go buy steaks and turkey breast and like all these vegetables. Yeah, so there's obviously like everybody's situation is going to be a little bit different, but I think that's where some verbiage along like, hey, this is our recommendation for how you can be healthy, and there's obviously going to be some wiggle room in here depending on each individual's circumstances, but generally, if you can follow along with these guidelines, you'll be pretty successful in the health department. And I don't know why a disclaimer like that can't be put out instead of just like hammering on, you have to do this.
Yes, that I feel like it should have been more. Like, I feel like it should be, first of all, just the fact that it hasn't been however long is
wild.
Like, everything adapts and changes, and that hasn't.
I mean, look, every company adapts and changes. So why have you not? It's frustrating.
They're sticking to their guns.
Yeah.
But like, and I think we talked about this just a little bit earlier, but like, just more general, eat some vegetables and eat fruit and lean meats. That's fine. Nuts and seeds are fine, but like more whole foods. Like, that would be advice. Eat more whole foods.
Great advice.
Less processed food.
Yes. Yeah.
That's really the best that anybody can hope to do these days.
Especially in today's day and age. Like, we are blessed to grow up in this time period, but at the same time, there's also, it's paradoxical. There are things that are detrimental to our health in this time period. Like, plastics are out of control. We have processed foods literally around every corner. And
it's very overwhelming if you think.
There's light everywhere. So like, we are blessed to live in a time period where starvation is, and to live in a country where starvation is, I would argue, difficult. There's probably some data points that I'm not pulling out of my head.
Sorry, we don't know everything.
Yeah, there are people that are starving.
My bad.
I mean, the fact that you can go spend $4 at McDonald's and get 800 calories is
crazy.
Not the best calories, but
it might be hungry 30 minutes later, but
but you did put them. Calories in. But it goes back to kind of like, that's, I think, probably the perfect example is where there's surplus, but with that surplus, there's also a paradoxical health detriment to it.
Yeah, definitely.
And like, if you're just recommending to people, hey, come out here, eat whole foods, eat fruits, eat vegetables, eat until you feel full by eating these things, and be active. That in and of itself will be
good advice.
Great for your health. And doesn't matter if you're following a diet, doesn't matter if you're following a fitness routine, any specific fitness routine. If you're looking for health, legit, just be active. Walking, no shit, is probably one of the best things.
It's great. Yeah. Plus it's nice. And you can go on walks with your friends, with your dog.
Not
my favorite. It's like my favorite thing ever. It's great.
Yeah. Not to get off on another tangent, but it is like,
it's
probably
awesome.
There are so many health benefits to walking.
Not to mention just being outside.
Yes.
Precision nutrition, the nutrition certification, which I did a couple years ago. One thing that I really loved that they said is their philosophy in general is amazing. They're awesome. They say there's no off limits foods. It's always just eat more of this and maybe less of this. It's not, and that is amazing. I wish that CrossFit would adopt a similar ideology. Because I think that it's a very, very healthy mindset to have. More of this, less of this, but we're not going to tell you can't eat it.
Yeah.
Or my teacher said, go slow, whoa. That was always what she would tell us in our sports nutrition class. Green light, and then maybe a little bit less, and then like trans fats and stuff, like avoid. But everything, making it much more like amenable, and because it is gray, it's very it's better because it's so individualized.
And just like having some grace for yourself is
absolutely. Everybody needs to be nicer to themselves.
I mean,
it's hard.
In pretty much all aspects of life too, but especially nutrition, because it is so easy to fall off the bandwagon, and there is kind of like there's an addiction component to I mean, there's addiction component to exercising, but also addiction component to food, exercising, coping mechanism. Like food is so many different things that you're going to fuck up. You're going to have times that you don't eat according to the 80-20 or whatever, or the paleo or whatever rule you're following. And you just have to accept it, be okay with it. And then just, hey, I'm going to get back on track tomorrow. And
yeah, every day is a new day.
Yeah.
Start from scratch. Doesn't
Right. And it is what it is. And it's time, like it's in the past now, time to move on from that and work on continuing to create the new habit for eating tomorrow again. But again, that is a little bit easier said than done with some of the addiction components to nutrition.
It is
sugar.
It can be tough. Like my extreme addiction to A&W, zero sugar.
Yes, exactly.
So, and Amanda, if you're listening, I'm sorry that I got you on that, because it's a problem. It's a big problem for all of you who are addicted, you know. One thing that I do wish that more like CrossFit and other companies emphasize more, I'm just thinking about it, is protein intake. Like that, people not eating enough protein is like a huge problem. It's huge because everybody's afraid of it, because somebody probably at some point told them that if you eat too much, then it's bad for your kidneys.
Yeah.
Which is total baloney, unless you have a kidney function problem.
Yeah. Which I'm actually
fine.
So I might push back on this a little bit.
That's good.
I think everyone that I've seen that is a competitive CrossFitter that's gone and got blood work done, their creatine levels are always elevated in their kidney. And I don't know if there's any studies on that I mean, there are elevated creatine levels in the kidney does cause kidney damage, but from a exercise standpoint, I'm unsure whether the exercise is creating that, the diet's creating that, or what. Because back in the day, there was a big component to eat a bodybuilder's diet for CrossFit, which was 1 gram of body weight, or 1 gram of protein per body weight, which I don't agree with for CrossFitters, especially, and especially CrossFitters like myself who are very anabolic when it comes to putting on muscle mass. We don't need high levels of protein, and I actually decreased my levels of protein. And when I did that, I decreased them to it was like I think I was eating 150 grams of protein at 230 pounds of body weight, and I felt significantly better as just a day before. Yeah,
it's interesting when you get into your weight people, because for me, like, so I feel a little bit opposite from you, not completely. Like I get what you're saying, and I also is kind of individualistic, and it does matter where the protein's coming from too, because like there's a lot of people that eat 10 scoops of protein powder a day, and like their gut health is horrible,
or their Twix bar has like 3 grams of protein. Gotta eat 100 of these to get my protein.
Yep. I don't make the rules. Sorry. But I do think it's interesting when you get into people that are heavier weights, because for me, I weigh at like 150, 155, and staying that in is not that difficult. I've kind of gotten it down to where I can space myself out and my snacks and stuff. And for me, I like eating that much because I feel fuller, because that's protein's the most filling nutrient, most satiating nutrient. So it's protein, because it's the hardest to break down. The meat sweats are real because your body's burning calories trying to break down the protein, just so y'all know, real thing. But yeah, I do think it's interesting when you get to people that are heavier, like it leads to the question, do I have to eat 1 gram per pound? I weigh 240 pounds. No, you don't have to. But there is research though that shows that are, because I remember learning this in my sports nutrition class, that if you are less than a gram per pound, then you risk being in negative protein or negative protein synthesis. And if you are above, then you're in positive protein synthesis. And then if you're like right at, then you are in that net protein balance range.
Yeah.
There is research that shows, and the research is actually like all over the place.
Right.
There's a lot of different studies on it, but that's one that stuck out to me where if you are eating less than a gram per pound, you are risking muscle wasting. So but I think it also is dependent on exercise, is dependent on a lot of things. So it's interesting.
One thing
I feel like for me, like I'm trying to put on a lot of strength gains because I'm not very strong. So I feel like for me that probably would be good for me to be eating an excess amount of protein.
Right. And
I think for you, like you said that your body doesn't respond well to that. So.
Well, I mean, I didn't feel as good as when I decreased, and like I legit, like I could eat 120 grams of protein and just be exercising and be putting on muscle mass.
That must be nice, Kyle.
People look, everybody. This is another thing that I think people need to like come to terms with, is the mindset that like everybody wants what they don't have, right?
Yeah.
So like I put on muscle mass easily, and I know there are men who are listening to this that are like, fuck, I wish I had what you had. But at the same time, like I don't like this, and I wish I was a hard gainer so that I could not have a ton of muscle mass in the sport of fitness and not have to worry about eating too little all the time, you know?
Yeah.
So like I think you have to come to terms with that mindset of like everybody kind of wants what they don't have. But one thing I did want to say was when it comes to research, I think you should take everything with a grain of salt, and also just use it as kind of like a compiling point to the story that you're forming in your head already. Because this is one of my qualms with research in general, is it's slow as fuck. And then two, you're trying to extrapolate this super finite detail in your study, and you're trying to control all the variables around just that one detail. When in reality, the world is fucking chaos. It's like just straight chaos. So to try and pull one variable out of a study and be like, this is what this does, it's like, maybe, you know, like
it could, I guess, under ideal conditions.
But like, you know, if you go and look at studies on ice baths, they tell you a smorgasbord of different things from every single study. like there's no consistency.
Terrible, great.
One time it blunted a signaling pathway for hypertrophy. Another time it increased a signaling path for hypertrophy or inflammation, like cleared out inflammation. So it's just like there's so many variables that cannot be accounted for in science and cannot be accounted for in the world, and I don't believe that we are ever going to figure it out. Maybe once quantum computing happens and you can map genome better.
Best bet. Honestly.
That might be a thing, but I mean, I don't think we'll ever fully figure out this stuff. And like I think just figuring it out. The most important thing is just making sure that you're in tune with your body and questioning what it is that you're doing at all times.
Like if you feel like ass, you probably should figure out what's making you feel that way and change it.
Yeah. if you have the means to, sometimes
yes, absolutely.
Sometimes medical intervention is needed, and that can get rather expensive.
Oh yeah. I don't go to the doctor.
Yeah.
Screw that copay.
For
that.
But yeah, do you have any closing thoughts here? Or?
I guess just to sum everything up, just everybody don't be, if I could give one message to especially women in the sport, or anybody that cares, keep it gray. Get too obsessed about stuff. Don't let this exclusion stuff blur your mind. Do the best that you can with the resources that you have, and balance quality of life with your values. So you don't, if it makes you anxious to go out to eat with your friends because you can't stop thinking about what you're going to eat is going to fit your macros, or if it's going to fit whatever dietary restriction you have, reevaluate that, because that's not going to be something. Is it going to be long term for you? Is that how you want to live the rest of your life? Make sure that make it something long term, make it something that's going to last and that is sustainable for you. Health is not nutrition, it is mental, physical, everything, all of it. One. Mm-hmm. Your mental health is suffering, then your physical health is suffering. Mm-hmm. Stressed about food, your cortisol levels are high and your physical health is suffering. So it might not even be helping that much anyways.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah.
It's health is all encompassing. It is. So don't be too stressed about what you're doing.
Yep.
Everybody needs to calm down.
Yeah. Yep. I think that hits the nail on the head in regards to health. We should have come up with 100 words of what we think fitness is and see compared to next time.
Next time. We'll take suggestions.
Yeah.
Comments. What is your 100 words of fitness?
Comment your 100 words of fitness. Or if that's too many, which that's a
lot. That's a lot of
fitness.
Just put 20 words of fitness.
2 to 10 words of fitness.
2 to 10. That's it.
That's it. Comment that below.
That's all.
Right on. Well, thanks for listening, guys. As always, please give us a follow on Instagram. Please subscribe on YouTube if you haven't. We mentioned Jamie's Instagram handle.
Wambo
Jambo. So if you guys want to get a hold of either of us, Instagram. But yeah, thanks for listening, and we will catch you guys next time.
Catch you on the flippity flip.